My name is Gary Smith, and I apologize. I got here late. I was at another meeting. But I have some good news and some bad news. I'll start with the bad news. As far as education, I am a father of 2, a grandfather of 3, and 1 on the way. And I'm very concerned about the educational system, not only here in the state of Idaho, but in the United States. I'm going to state some facts, and then if anybody wants to check them, I'll be more than happy to share that with you. But at the time that the No Child Left Behind was proposed by President Bush, 32% of our Idaho 8th graders were at grade level in reading. Only 32%. So 2/3 of our students were behind, and probably in the 8th grade will never catch up. Last year when our children were tested, our 4th graders, only 35% were at grade level. Those are our 4th graders. That means, again, 2/3 or 65% of our students are failing. On a national level, of the top 30 developed countries in this world, which Idaho is part of, we send our children out to work in, and we'll be competing against, on a national level, of the top 35 developed countries in the world, the U.S. ranks 25th. This was the nation that put a man on the moon. We now rank 25th. Of the national level of the top 30 developed countries, the United States ranks 25th in math and 21st in science. Of the top of our 5% students, so if you were to go out and pick the cream of the crop, the best of the best of our students, the United States ranks 23rd out of 29 most developed countries. These are facts. And of the following world leaders, the U.S. ranks 9th in order: Korea, Japan, Canada, Australia, France, Germany, Spain, and then the U.S. Again, when I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, we were a nation of leaders. And I'll close with this fact, and then I'll get to the good news. By 2020, 123 million high-tech jobs, high-salary-paying jobs will be available in the United States. With our present system, we will only be able to fill 50 million of those. Who will fill those others? That's where we are falling behind. If there are any legislators in this room, I would encourage you to look at the 2 following videos that are available. One of them is called Waiting for Superman. The other one is The Cartel. For people that are here that are interested about education, if you are a parent, a taxpayer, a grandparent, I encourage you to watch these 2 videos and watch them all the way through, to the end, because some of them are based on New Jersey and New York and East Coast. I'm from New York, sorry, originally, one of the 13 original colonies. I remember that from school. So I encourage you to see these 2 movies. Many of the facts I've just stated are well documented in that. So what I've heard a lot about in the last couple of weeks, and I'm not here to say I'm for or against, what I'm here to say is we, the people of Idaho, need to make a change. I've heard about money, I've heard about teachers, I've heard about cuts, and I've heard about parents that aren't doing their job. Well, as part of this media program or this video, there is a program called the KIPP Academy. They've been operating for 16 years within the public school districts around the United States in the lowest of incomes, the worst neighborhoods that you could pick. I grew up in New York. I know what the Bronx is like. That's, if you ever watched the movie Fort Apache, it is one of the worst neighborhoods. Kids don't even go to school because they're afraid to leave their homes. The KIPP Academy has operated 100 schools for the last 16 years. They are part of the public school system. They just do things a little bit differently. And their kids that come from the worst families, the worst neighborhoods, the worst incomes, the worst of the worst, are blowing the doors off of many of our schools, even here in the state of Idaho. So there is a way to do it. I don't have all the answers, but in the little bit of research I've done since this whole discussion has started, I've tried to take to our legislative body, both the Senate and the House, that there are ways of doing it. And before we get involved in emotions and this and that, I would suggest every legislator, and I will challenge them as I meet them face to face, before they vote, if they have watched The Cartel, Waiting for Superman, and if they have done their research on the KIPP Academy, because probably 90% of the questions that both sides have debated back and forth are answered in those 3 pieces. So that's your homework assignment, students, if you will, to do that. Now, Told you I had good news and I had bad news. Who wants the good news? Okay, I'm ready to write a check to the state for $30 million. Would anybody like to accept that? Okay, good. We have some volunteers. I'm not personally going to do that, but I have given to the legislators, because I'm on another committee looking for money, for funds for highways. And I ran across something that was very interesting, and it is a city ordinance in the city of Dallas that they had a problem with uninsured motorists. How many people in this room do not have insurance on their car? Go ahead, you can raise your hand. Okay. Actually, nationwide, it's 16 to 20% of the cars on the road are uninsured. That's somebody that could hit you. You're at risk. Okay? 16. State of Idaho, it's about 10%. About 10% right now. So what the city of Dallas did, and just to help you, the city of Dallas has about the same population as the state of Idaho. They discovered that they had 75,000, and these were from actual stops where police officers had stopped cars for tickets, speeding, whatever, not going out and profiling, please, let's not go there. These were normal traffic stops. In 2008, 75,000 vehicles that were stopped did not have insurance. All right? They said enough is enough. So they stepped up and they put in what's called the towing ordinance, and I'll give a copy of this if there's any of the representatives here. It is an ordinance that's been in effect since January 1st of 2009. It has been tested in the 5th District Court, so it's legal. It can be done. It can be done by us, too. And it's called the towing ordinance, towing uninsured motorists. And what happens when a policeman stops a vehicle and he, for whatever reason, he asks that citizen for their license, their registration, and their proof of insurance. On the back of your registration card, every one of you signed and said, I do have liability insurance to cover my vehicle, and you are required by Idaho code to keep that in your car. So there's no excuse for not having it there. If you don't have it there, you're breaking law. So real quick, what they do is if you do not have that, they immediately take that car off the road. They tow it. They hook it up and they tow it away. No excuses. You are fined $350 for the tow, plus $50 for the administration fee. So let's jump ahead. 75,000 times that is $30 million that they collect. Do you know what it costs the taxpayers? Zero. Nothing. The policemen are already there. They're doing their job. The $350 is not a tax. It's a fine. It's a ticket. Some people will say, well, that's unfair. $350. Why would you do that? That's terrible. How much do you pay for your car insurance? $350 to $500? Is that right? Would everybody agree? Some pay a little bit more. So all we're doing is saying, if you don't have insurance, you're going to lose your car. It comes off the road. It's the vehicle, because the vehicle is a liability. It's a risk. Would you give the keys to a drunk driver and say, hey, take this and continue driving? So it doesn't cost us anything. The $350 goes to the general fund. It's not a tax, so it can be used for anything. It goes to a general fund. The $50 administrative fee, that goes to pay the clerk that when you finally do get your insurance and you go forward, what you do is you go to a clerk that's already hired, already in position, and the clerk stamps the certificate and says, yes, you've showed me proof of insurance. Hasn't cost you as a taxpayer anything more. That clerk is already sitting there. You can do it at the city level, whatever. Then the person who was towed then has to go to the towing company, and from that point on, they pay the tow cost, they pay the storage, they pay everything. The state, the county, the city is out of it. So all we do is collect our $350. When I say I'm saying the people of Idaho. We collect our $350, our $50 for the person that did it, we're done. If we take a look at the way the law is now, and people say, well, that's harsh and everything, you are paying every time a citizen is pulled over and doesn't have it, because a ticket has to be issued. Okay, both the same, that's balanced. Both programs work that way. But from that point forward, that ticket has to be tracked. It goes to the county or someplace. Somebody has to track it for 3 weeks. That means that vehicle without insurance is on the road for 3 weeks. Could be a risk to anybody. Then it moves forward to the point where, all right, now if the person does not appear, a bench warrant has to be put out, a judge gets involved, attorneys, and you are paying for that. You're paying for every penny of that. The other side of it is you would get the money if we put this ordinance in place. And all this would take is our legislators passing this bill and saying, enforce Idaho code, which already exists. Everything is in place. All they would have to do is take this ordinance, copy it, put it in, vote on it, and we could start collecting money right away. Where did I get $30 million? $30 million is basically the same number of people that are in Dallas as in the state of Idaho, the same national numbers backed by the insurance companies. So let's say it's not 30 million. Let's say it's 15 million. Let's say it's 5 million. Based upon just the Idaho State Police last year, Idaho State Police, the cars that they pulled over, according to Idaho records, would have generated $5 million. Tax-free. $5 million. Tax-free. I listened to Brian Niss, our new director of ITD, talk about a program where he was going to cut, restructure, and do everything, and it could save them about $1.5 million over the next 5 years. I gave him a copy of this and said, here's $5 million, and you don't have to cut anybody. And you could probably take the extra money and update all the software on our DMV and everything. So the good news is there are ways to run more money or earn more money. All I hear is people talking about cutting. There is no money. I mean, I was going to bring a box of tissues up and tell you all the sad stories I've heard in the last couple of weeks sitting in these chambers. So my recommendation to the people is, if you like this, call your state representative up and say, hey, have you heard about the towing ordinance of uninsured motorists, and why don't you enforce it? I've given copies of this to ITD. I've given copies to District 14. And if there are any other representatives here that would like copies, I have copies, so I can present them. That's all I have. Thank you very much.